Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. This is George, and today I want to talk about the Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. So, I've decided to reread The Lord of the Rings. Lately, I just had that strong desire to just dive into another fantasy series, and what better other series to dive into if not the one that started it all, the one series to rule them all. I read Lord of the Rings before. I think I read it in high school or at a younger age than that. Fair to say, I read them a long time ago. And because this is a reread, I decided to make my experience a little different. Now, The Silmarillion is the only book in the series that I didn't read. So I decided that in order to make my experience different, to this time start the series with the Silmarillion instead of the Hobbit or Fellowship of the Ring as one usually does. It's a really hard book to talk about. Nothing I say, none of the knowledge I have will ever give this book the credit it deserves. It was published 4 years after Tolkien died, and it was edited by his son, Christopher Tolkien. This is the book that stands as background to all the events in Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I say background because I cannot fully describe it as a prequel, although it is written as a prequel and it stands more as a prequel to Lord of the Rings than to The Hobbit, although the events in this book take place before The Hobbit, and a lot of the events are, especially at the end, you get to read about things that happen during the last Lord of the Rings and Hobbit novels as well. Yeah, it sounds complicated, and well, it is complicated. Let me put it this way: this you should not read this as a novel. It wasn't written as a novel. It's written more like a compendium, or a legendarium of Middle Earth and the events that took place before all the events that we are familiar with. It's just imagine, it's practically like if you were a person living in Middle Earth and walked into one of their libraries and searched in the nonfiction, history, or religious section, this is the book you would find. The world of Lord of the Rings expands over 3 ages. This book mainly focuses on the first age, although you do get informations about the second age and the third age. The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit take place in the third age, so this is just for you to kind of have an idea on how far back this Silmarillion takes place. That being said, it starts with the creation. The creation is very similar to the biblical elements of the Christian Bible. And when I say it has similarities with the Christian Bible, I mean that even the type of writing is very similar to the Genesis, um, and beyond. Having that in mind, I'm just going to let you know that it's nothing like the events in the Bible. The world is created by Eru, or Ilúvatar. We see the fall of Melkor, the first evil character, and let me put it this way: Sauron, the big baddie from the Lord of the Rings, is little angel compared to what this guy does. Melkor is the root of all evil, not just the evil presented in this book. He is the root of all evil that expands throughout the entire series. After the creation, you get to see the birth of elves and the coming of men and the creation of dwarfs and so on. The more the story progresses, the more grounded it gets. The more you distance yourself from the godly characters, the more familiar and grounded the story becomes. It's interesting to see how things evolve. It's interesting to follow the steps of history and to follow the evolution of all these different characters, and also to see the becomings of all these characters. There are so many legends presented here, Stories of myth and battles that surpass all boundaries of imagination. Constantly, you will be hit by names, events, connections, and separations that can even feel quite overwhelming at times. This is the type of book that you have to read without too many long breaks in between, just so you can keep up with all the information. What makes it special though is just that, the huge amount of detail in describing the entire creation of Middle Earth and the species that will inhabit it. Listen, this is Tolkien's life work. This is not just a book that he wrote for the sake of publishing. This is something that he worked for tens of years, decades. This is this he started working on this from a very young age. He mentioned it himself that the stories of Middle Earth have been with him for a very, very long time, and that he dedicated a lot of his fiction work to Middle Earth. Seriously, there are decades of tragedies and conflicts that are being described in this book. The Silmarillion is so comprehensive that you have entire family trees described and documented. I am certain that the amount of history and mythology will be carried down to the other novels and will definitely add up to the experience of the entire read. I highly recommend this book for anyone who is a Lord of the Rings fan, or a Tolkien fan, or a history buff, or a mythology buff, or has a passion for languages, or is passionate about writing. This book can stand as an example of what it takes to create an extraordinary fantasy series, or any series at all. Okay, thank you for watching. If you want to hear more about the rest of the books in the Lord of the Rings series, or the Middle Earth series, as you want to call them, then stay tuned, subscribe. I will be starting on The Hobbit very soon, and will review it accordingly afterwards. So, if you are interested in hearing more about the rest of the books in the series, or if you are interested in hearing more reviews of different books that I read, then please subscribe and keep in touch. Stay safe and take care. I'll see you next time.